meeting of Sylvania City Council for March 17th, 2025 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hayden?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Dow? Here. Mrs. Westfall?
Mrs. Westfall is absent and excused. Thank you. 6 members of council being in attendance. We do have a quorum this evening. And I'd like to ask the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by our scout in the back. If you would, please, and we'll move Mr. Richardson to the next meeting.
Sounds good.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Additions to the agenda, I would like to have 2 additions. First, the election of a president pro tem for this evening. We'll make that agenda item 3A. We'll deal with that here in a second. And then the addition of ordinance number 40, 2025 for consideration. We'll make that 13B. We're right after the safety committee report from Mr. Hanson. Do I have a motion? Well, do I have to go have a, no, I don't need that. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next up is item 3A, which is the election of a president pro tem for this evening due to Mrs. Westfall's absence.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hingham.
I'd like to move that we select Patrick Richardson to be our president pro tem this evening.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve Mr. Richardson as the president pro tem for this evening's meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. And congratulations, Mr. President pro tem.
Happy to help.
And with that, I'll put the consideration of the council's meeting minutes for March 3rd, 2025. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the approval of the council meeting minutes from the meeting held on March 3rd, 2025 as submitted.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of the council meeting of March 3rd, 2025 as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. And now we're up to the proclamation for the Lucas County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Nabil, and Ms. Priest, who's the assistant superintendent. So first, would you like to say a couple words first? No. Okay. Whereas the mission of the Lucas County Board of Developmental Disabilities is improving life, LIFE, so that individuals with developmental disabilities reach their full potential. And whereas LIFE stands for core values, living life, inclusion, freedom of choice, and everyone has worth. And whereas the history of the Lucas County Board of Developmental Disabilities is one of initiative, advocacy, and leadership. The current programs evolved from early classes taught by Josina Lott in her dining room, starting in 1938, and she eventually opened the Lott Day School in East Toledo in 1945. And whereas in 1962, the voters of Lucas County authorized the first levy in Ohio history to support the education of children with intellectual disabilities. And whereas since 1987, March has been recognized as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month and is a nationwide event that aims to raise awareness about the inclusion of people with developmental disabilities and highlight the value, rights, and aspirations of those individuals. Now, therefore, I, Mark R. Fry, Mayor, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in the city of Sylvania. Congratulations. This is near and dear to me for obvious reasons, as many of you know. So here's the proclamation.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having us here today and for recognizing March as Developmental Disability Awareness Month. This proclamation is a commitment to fostering an inclusive community where people of all abilities have access to opportunities, respect, and the support that they need to thrive. Acknowledgement is the first action, and by doing so, we are taking a step toward breaking barriers and building a more inclusive community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you coming, and obviously this is important for our community, and Sylvania has a long history of supporting all the wonderful services you provide, so thank you very much.
We appreciate yours.
Yeah. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We're getting ready to consider executive session, so you don't have to, but you're welcome.
Thank you.
With that, the next item on the agenda is an executive session to discuss pending litigation. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session council committee of the whole?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second to enter into executive session for pending litigation. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Hanem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stout? Yes.
All 6 members in the affirmative to enter into executive session council committee of the whole pending litigation. we are completed with the conversation in executive session. Could I have a motion to exit executive session and return to regular session?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to return to regular session and exit executive session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Hanem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stout? Yes.
All 6 members of council in attendance are agreed to exit executive session. No action was taken in executive session. It was merely to update council and administrative staff on the results of pending litigation. So, for the scout, what executive session is there's a handful of things by state law that cities are allowed to enter into executive session so that it doesn't become part of the public record. And pending litigation is one of those things. But in order to do that, the members of council have to agree to enter into executive session. That's why we had the roll call to go into executive session and the roll call to go out of executive session. Does that make sense? So there's a handful of things. Pending litigation is one of them. Employee is the second one, and the other ones escape me off the top of my head, but there's like 4 of them, right? And the law director's got those things memorized, and that's why that I don't. So anyways, no decisions were made in executive session because by law in the state of Ohio, you're not allowed to make any decisions in executive session in regards to the operation of a public body like the city of Sylvania. So with that, moving on to ordinance number 42, 2025. Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the annual ordinance that we do every year just to officially adopt, approve, and enact the replacement pages to the codified ordinances. This year, all of the updates were online, so this is all that we get. These were all, the ones that are attached and included are just updates that were made by the state legislature that we have to amend our code to comply with. The ordinances that we pass throughout the year, amending specific sections are also included, so online, those should be updated as well. So I would recommend its approval unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Browning? Hearing none, Mr. McCann, ordinance number 42, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 42-2025, an ordinance to approve, adopt, and enact current replacement pages to the codified ordinances, to repeal ordinances in conflict therefore or therewith, to publish the enactment of new matter. I move for passage of ordinance number 42-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 42, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 42, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item number 8, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. We have in front of you police vehicle purchases tonight. I'll walk you through the plan with those. So to start with the existing fleet, the vehicles involved with this, we have a 2014 Ford Interceptor with just under 153,000 miles on it. This was used for our school resource officer purposes. This vehicle will be moved to gov deals and sold. A second vehicle involved in this is a 2020 Interceptor with 90,000 miles. That one will be used to replace the school resource officer vehicle. So we're going to shift that one over. The third one, and because we're buying 2, usually we get rid of 2. And this third one here, the 2018 Ford Interceptor that's listed in the letter that has just under 146,000 miles. The chief of police is recommending that we hang on to that for light duty use in anticipation of our expected duties at the Sylvania Municipal Court with officers assigned to that operation. That vehicle may be used to deliver summons, court orders, custody transports, and the like. So So instead of getting rid of 2 and getting 2, we're getting rid of 1 and hanging on to 1 for anticipated use that goes with the court. Okay, so those are the existing vehicles. Our new ones, we're looking to get 2 from Bauman Ford in Oregon. Each vehicle has a purchase price of $49,095.94. We're getting 2, so just double that. And then to upfit each of the vehicles with the interior and exterior patrol packages, we are using Northwest Ohio Emergency Equipment out of Northwood, Ohio. To upfit each one of those vehicles is $15,486 per vehicle. So those are the amounts there. So we did include these in our 2025 budget. These are out of our Federal Equitable Sharing Fund, a drug law enforcement account, which is a 229 account, which is listed there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Shaw, what's the timing if these are approved by council for these to go into service? Do you have a sense of that?
Chief, maybe you answer, have you talked to Bauman about that?
Right now, they're not expecting any delays, but as we've noticed in the past few years, that can change at any moment. So I'm gonna say right now, we're good. They have stock, so we should be able to get them, but I plan for the worst case scenario.
Fair enough. That's why I asked the question, because I know we've had some challenges in the past few years. Questions from members of council? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 43, 2025. Ms. Stout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce ordinance number 43-2025 and read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Bauman Ford Oregon LLC for the purchase of 2 new 2025 Ford Interceptors, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $98,191.88. I move for passage of ordinance number 43-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 43, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance number 43, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to ordinance number 44, 2025. Ms. Stout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm working my way down to it. Here we go. I would like to introduce ordinance number 44-2025 and read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Northwest Ohio Emergency Equipment to provide interior and exterior patrol packages for the 2 new Ford Interceptors, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $30,972. I move for passage of ordinance number 44-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 44, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance number 44, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. On to agenda item number 9. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will take a couple minutes to explain this. This may be back at council a couple of times, but this is a little complicated, so I'll walk members of council through this. So we're dealing with the Frickers property on Monroe Street. That site where the restaurant is at is owned by a separate entity, and the Frickers group leases that building from them. So that's the right side of the property, or if you're looking at it, the east side of the property. On the west side of the restaurant is a vacant lot. It used to be a dentist office. Building has since been demolished. It's been vacant, kind of an eyesore, some asphalt left, kind of unsightly. But Frickers, the leasee of the restaurant, bought that lot to the west, and they're holding it because they want to do a parking lot expansion on it to give overflow parking to the restaurant. So they purchased it. The goal is to do parking. We were approached about mid-year last year about wanting to do that. So once we got the plans, we started to take a look at. Their surveyor identified some storm sewer that was leaving the road right of way. So up in Monroe Street, we're collecting drainage from the road. A little bit comes from Toledo Memorial Park on the other side. That's all collected at the westerly driveway of the Frickers restaurant site, and then continues to the south. So outside of the right of way, goes a little bit through the Frickers site, goes through the vacant parking lot or proposed parking lot site, and then continues to the south towards river crossings, kind of towards our maintenance garage. So we took a look at that and we said, okay, what's the shape of the storm sewer? We knew it existed, but we didn't really know what condition it was in. So two things. Number one, a portion of it is in really bad shape. It's very old stuff. And two, we couldn't find any records of sort to indicate we had an easement for that storm sewer that leaves the road right away onto private property. So we run into messes like this occasionally in what I do, but this is one for sure that is in cleanup in aisle 6. So we've got to get this one figured out and cleaned up. So we have worked with two entities on this. The Baumgartners are the property where the restaurant sits, and the Frick family is where the vacant parking lot is. Okay, so that's kind of the setup. So in front of you tonight is the negotiated easement to formally acknowledge the storm sewer that goes through the vacant parking lot site. That's what we're looking to acquire tonight. We knew about this last year. We were struggling, trying to get some legs with honestly both to pay attention to this. So we threw the numbers into the 2025 budget, knowing that we would have to be dealing with this year. So we've got one secured. So the one in front of you tonight is for the vacant parking lot site. This is the Frick family one. We've worked with them on this, but what it is a recorded drainage easement if approved. We ran the numbers on what we should be compensating with them. We came up with $2,217 for the easement. They agreed with that, didn't have any argue or any issues with the price. So this was a known expense in our 2025 budget, and we're requesting approval of the easement tonight. We will be back to get the second easement for the restaurant site when that's been secured. And then we probably will be back a third time to do a construction project to replace the storm sewer that's in really bad shape. So this is piece 1 of 3.
So just a small add-on, if you recall, last year, we considered the knee wall piece of the puzzle, that this is the entity that kind of started that movement and that conversation about approving a knee wall, a consistent knee wall look for places like this. That's kind of where we started on this process. Any questions from members of council?
Yes, Mr. Rank. Mr. Shaw, will the eventual storm sewer mediation be in the parking lot plan? In other words, will it be under the site plan for the expanded parking area?
So a great question. So when we cambered that whole line, we found 60 feet of it to be not capable of being trenchlessly taken care of, which means line it like we do our sanitary sewers. The remainder of it through the vacant parking lot site was in good shape. We can do it that way, so no problem. But the piece that's actually in the restaurant portion of the site, there's about 60 feet of it. That's in really bad shape. That's a dig and replace. So the goal is to remediate all of it, but the immediate need is the stuff that's in really bad shape in the driveway. And that's what we'll tackle this year.
So we're gonna tear up that parking lot and the restaurant?
So in the very western driveway, they have 2 at the restaurant site. That it's right through that westerly driveway. So we will kind of cut a trench through there, replace it, build it back up. The owner has talked about wanting to resurface that parking lot, the existing parking lot, in a couple years. So in a couple years, you wouldn't even know we were there.
How long would that take that out of service?
We think the work will take about a week. 3 days if it goes well, 5 days if it's deep. It's kind of tricky, in all honesty. It's not something we can even do in-house, but somewhere between 3 and 5 days. And they have a second drive to get in and out of the restaurant, so they'll be okay. So
Let's not do it during March Madness.
we won't be ready. No worries.
Or on Ohio State, Michigan, Saturday.
We'll pick a good time that works for everyone.
July, August.
Yeah. Any other questions from council members? If not, we have ordinance number 45, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 45-2025, accepting an easement agreement for drainage purposes from Frick Family LLC, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $2,217. I move for passage of ordinance number 45-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 45, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carried, and ordinance number 45, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Mr. Shaw, moving on to agenda item number 10.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had hinted at the next two projects that I'm going to show you tonight. Last March 3rd at our Streets Committee meeting, we stepped through roundabouts and how we select them, where we select them, where we want to go. That was a little bit of lead up to what's on your screen here to kind of give you a little heads up on what we're asking for. So late last year in August, we were approved with DGL Consulting Engineers to do a traffic study on our Holland-Sylvania corridor between Brent and Haroon. As you're looking at the screen, north would be to your right. So the top roundabout up there would be Britton, Maine. As you go to the bottom left of the screen, that's Haroon and Holland-Sylvania. And then the one at the very bottom right, that would be Britton and Haroon, just to give you a lay of the land on what you're looking at. So DGL has completed that traffic study, and they have found that both of the colored intersections up there, Holland-Sylvania and Haroon, as well as Britton, Maine, they have crash problems. The metric that ODOT looks at is 30% injury or higher. So if you look at all your crashes, and if 30% of those is higher that have resulted in injury, that interests them to want to look at some safety improvements. We talked about that at the Streets Committee as well. Haroon and Holland-Sylvania is at 35% injury crashes. Britton, Maine is at 32.8. Both intersections are above that metric. So this interests ODOT to want to do some improvements here. In addition, the Brent and Maine intersection is actually on ODOT's Highway Safety Improvement Program priority list. They list several different priority lists, but for urban and suburban intersections, that's number 170 out of 500-ish that they have. So this is on their
Talk
radar.
about Brent and Maine.
Britton, Maine, top right. Yep, that intersection is.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
What about Haroon and Brent?
Yep, so that's a great question. That's kind of grayed out a little bit in your exhibit. That's not a part of the discussion here, but that is a funded roundabout project that we already have. That was congestion mitigation and air quality funds that we did 2 years ago. So we have a funded roundabout at Brent and Haroon. We're asking for 2 more at the next 2 intersections. Okay. So we went through all of the application processes. We are ready to go. Those applications are due March 31st. We're set and ready to go. We've ran the numbers on them. So in the last paragraph in your letter, we'll start at the top right one, Britton, Maine. That project estimate is $3.1 million, and we are requesting up to just short of 2.6, which is 81% of the project costs. The reason it's not 90-10, as I discussed in my roundabout presentation, is the safety program does not fund construction engineering. So there's a little bit more participation that goes with that. And then the Haroon and Holland-Sylvania location, a little short of $3.8 million, and we're requesting up to a little short of $3.1 million in safety funding assistance. So what we usually do, if successful with these, is the balance of the local funds that are used in these, we double back when the funding window opens for Ohio Public Works Commission, and we supplement our local with additional grant dollars that we try to get from OPWC. So that's what the goal would be with these 2 if successful. Okay, that's a lot. Any questions?
What kind of OPWC grant dollars?
Really good. Like if we get 90%, almost 80% participation on these, I have to be in it for 10% of the project costs. So at most, $300,000 on each.
That'd be pretty good. Okay.
Yep.
300,000 is not enough.
It's not, but a traffic signal replacement at both is probably in the 600s to 700. So I'm still 50% to the good with each intersection under this approach.
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
The open question to the public is, what if we do nothing, or what is the driver for this?
Crashes, clearly. So if we're getting above 30% metric on injury crashes at these intersections and do nothing, that continues. And that's in ODOT's eyes and the safety world for transportation, that's unacceptable. Something should be fixed.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a quick question. I'm fairly certain I know the answer, but I had a constituent reach out and ask, so I want the answer on the record. There is no concern with the proximity of these to the hospital of emergency vehicles getting around the roundabouts, is there?
Well, we had that come up on the traffic signal in front of Flower. As you remember, the recommendation was for a roundabout. The ultimate end user was the hospital, and so we weighed that back and forth and ultimately sided with the hospital and said, okay, something needs to be done. If you are against the roundabout at there and you want to use a traffic signal, that's okay. We'll do that here, and that's how we did that. Outside of that footprint, I still think these are way far and high above the best ways to solve these intersections with the crashes that we're seeing here. Mostly we're seeing at Brent Main is impatient drivers. You're not getting the green, you're not getting the arrow, you're running it, and we're seeing a lot of angle crashes.
Impatient drivers in Sylvania? Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Shaw, so you said 30%, but I'm just curious, is there a minimum amount of accidents that have to occur?
Yeah, 5 per year.
5 per year, okay, thank you.
I think in the period that we looked at, I think Brent Main was at 10, 11-ish, and the other one was around that same metric, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have resolution number 6, 2025. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 6, 2025. I'll read by title only. A resolution authorizing the mayor and director of finance to file an Ohio Department of Transportation Highway Safety Improvement Program grant application for the Brent Road and Main Street, Holland Sylvania Road roundabout project, and I move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 6, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And resolution number 6, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Resolution number 7, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 7, 2025. I'll read by title only. A resolution authorizing the mayor and director of finance to file an Ohio Department of Transportation Highway Safety Improvement Program grant application for the Haroon Road and Holland Sylvania Road roundabout project, and I move passage as an emergency measure.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 7, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Resolution number 7, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Ms. Scowley, you've been hearing me say things are approved as an emergency measure. So by our city charter, things are allowed to be moved forward more quickly. Traditionally, many years ago, when internet didn't exist and so forth, the availability of information and communication wasn't the same. Council would do things on 3 readings, and some things we still do with multiple readings, but most things in the city are passed under an emergency measure, provided that 5 members of council agree to pass something as an emergency measure, so it moves forward immediately. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that you understood, because we're going through a bunch of stuff pretty quick here. Moving on to agenda item number 11, we have a transfer of a liquor control permit. Chief Miller, any concerns about the transfer of the Borderline Grill permit to Stratosphere as the Limit LLC?
No, Mr. Mayor, we haven't had any calls out there or any concerns.
Questions from council members? Hearing none. Mr. Haynem, if you open to making a motion in
Yeah.
regards to this?
I move that we do not request a hearing on what's the application number? Permit number 083-596-5976 to the Ohio Division of Liquor Control.
Second. We have a motion and a second to not request a public hearing for the transfer of the liquor permit from the Borderline Grill to the Stratosphere is the Limit. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And we will notify them that we're not asking for a meeting in a public hearing in that regard. Agenda item number 12, we have proposed resolution number 8, 2025. Mr. Shaw.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had talked about Ohio Public Works Commission just previously in the last thing with the roundabouts, supplementing those. This is a resolution for on May 6th ballot coming up is issue number 2. If you're not sure what that is a renewal of the 10-year general obligation bonds that fund the Ohio Public Works Commission program. Mayor Fry and I, maybe a month or so ago, were collaborating on how many grant funds we've secured in over a period of time here in Sylvania. Since 2011, the Ohio Public Works Commission program has given us almost $10 million. Not given, we've solicited and earned $10 million in Ohio Public Works Commission grant dollars, which we work really hard to get. So it's a big program for what we do. It helps us just with stuff that we just looked at. It's a big piece. So the resolution in front of you is for a motion of support for that. It seeks to renew the state capital improvement program and the issuance of general obligation bonds up to $250 million per year for a 10-year period. Issue number 2, if you're not familiar with that, it relies on existing state revenues. It does not raise taxes. That's an important thing to remember with that. This program has been in place since 1987. That was the first time Ohio Public Works Commission was there. This is the 4th iteration of it. So for 40 years strong, we've had a good infrastructure improvement program to help municipalities across Ohio do this. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is for this program for us as a community to continue to see this through. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
Just note this is an apolitical fund, and that the grants are based on merit and the ability of the project to contribute to the infrastructure well-being of our communities.
Yep, I'm a part of the district integrating committee for District 12 that we sit on, so I get to review the projects and score them. I'm a part of that process. Absolutely, to your point, it's 100% how it works. It's highly, highly competitive, so.
Lots of communities, but securing $10 million since 2011 is an awful lot of resources we're bringing back to our community. Any other questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, Mr. Murphy, I think you're the only one who hasn't done one tonight. So
I've had a few.
you're up. So resolution number 8, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 8, 2025, a resolution of the Council of the City of Sylvania urging Ohio voters to support State Issue 2, renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program. I would move for passage of ordinance 8, 2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 8, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and resolution number 8, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to committee reports. Report from the Safety Committee meeting held this evening regarding ordinance, regarding the brick,
Drone.
the drone. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We called the Safety Committee meeting to order at 7 p.m. Mrs. Westfall was not available to attend. She is the chairperson of the Safety Committee, and therefore I stepped in temporarily for this meeting. Also in attendance from the committee was Brian McCann, Mr. McCann, and Ms. Stout. Others from City Council in attendance were Mr. Hanum, Mr. Richardson, Mr. Murphy. From City of Sylvania Administration, we had Mr. Mayor Mark Fry, Ms. Brining, Ms. Bigelow, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Sanford, and Chief Miller. Chief Miller gave a good presentation, both with slides and video, describing the request to purchase a drone for the police department. Some of the high points of her presentation were that the drone has a 3-mile distance capability, 42-minute flight time, red and blue lights, logo, ability to pick up and drop off items, and thermal detections. She described some situations where the drone would be used, such as missing persons, foot pursuits, suicidal instances, traffic crashes, and barricades, as well as construction and event monitoring. Some other key points is that it's American-made and compliant with the National Defense Authorization Act. It offers 24/7 customer support and a loaner available during repair if it were ever to go into maintenance. The police department currently has a policy requesting the assistance of a drone, and the policy will be updated to be established and maintain this program if approved. The cost would be a 3-year contract at just under $24,000 per year with Brink. The Sylvania Police Department has had a donor which would cover the first year of service during that contract. There were several questions and discussion that took place. Mr. McCann brought up the budget beyond the 3 years and other special uses. He also asked if the drone could be rented to other agencies and whether other agencies were using one currently. Mr. Hanem asked if this could be coordinated with Sylvania Township. Ms. Chief Miller responded by saying there's no interest currently in that, but she would continue to look into that. Mr. Murphy asked about a training plan and special event coverage, and Ms. Stowe confirmed that there would not be able to be any weapons on the drone. Lastly, Mr. McCann asked that we include some reports be made available to council from time to time to show the usage of the drone, again, if approved. Ms. Stowe made a motion to forward the ordinance to City Council, ordinance number 40-2025. Mr. McCann seconded that. All committee members voted in favor. Mr. McCann made a motion to adjourn the meeting. Ms. Stowe seconded at 7:32 p.m.
Any questions for Mr. Hanson in regards to the Safety Committee report? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 40, 2025, which was added to the agenda this evening. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 40-2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a master services and purchasing agreement with Brink Drones, Inc. for the provision of a responder safeguard drone training and support, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $23,999.20. I move for passage of ordinance number 40-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 40, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 40, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to committee referrals. Are there any committee referrals for this evening? Hearing none, we've got 3 notes of information in your packet as well. One is the NORAD annual meeting, information about an AI economic development piece. If any council members are interested in attending, let us know, and we'll help you out with that. And the Board of Architecture review and Sylvania Municipal Planning Commission meeting minutes from the meeting last week. Any questions about any of those 3 items? Hearing none. Don't see anything else to come before City Council. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn City Council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and we are adjourned until our next council meeting 2 weeks hence on it's 3 weeks hence, excuse me. On April the 7th at 7:30 p.m. here in this council chambers. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming today.